What is the nature of humor, and how does humor develop in the early stages of life? Laughing and smiling are among the most human of behaviors. A baby's first smile can occur as early as 6 weeks of age, and their first laugh at 3 to 4 months. But what makes us smile and laugh and how we understand humorous intentions changes throughout development. Humor is both a cognitive and a social behavior, an understanding of social norms and how those norms can be violated. Part of developing what we would refer to as a sense of humor involves understanding the concept of false beliefs, identifying that someone can believe something that is not true. Another is understanding that humans can intentionally do a wrong thing to convey a humorous effect. For example, playing with your food. There is also the question of how we learn to joke. At what point do children go from copying jokes or actions they see from adults or peers to creating their own jokes? Studying the early development of humor is tricky, since you cannot ask an infant whether they find something funny. These questions can be answered by looking at how infants react to humor, specifically whether they laugh, smile, or look and respond to jokes. In this documentary, we will discuss the results from 3 studies which explore questions relating to the development of early humor.
To get a first-hand look at how children and parents use humor, we spoke with the Pine family about how they use humor on a daily basis to interact with each other.
So do you think Blair Jr. and Rayleigh react differently when they observe you make a mistake versus when you make a joke? Can you give an example?
I think they react more off of our emotions. So if we are smiling or laughing, I think they immediately think it's funny. So if it's something that maybe that we've done wrong or that they've done wrong and we're trying to be stern and tell them that's bad, but if we secretly think it's funny and we start laughing, then all of a sudden it does become a joke and it is funny to them. Mm-hmm. So I think that they react more off of what they see, like if our emotions are saying it's serious or don't do it, or if it's funny, I think as a parent that's hard to not give that smirk when it really is something as a 4-year-old that maybe they did that's funny but they shouldn't do, or so I think they react more off of our faces, not necessarily off of maybe remembering of something. I think they also understand socially what is funny or not funny, or what their friends at school may think is funny.
Right.
Like as a boy, he thinks some things are funny that she doesn't think are funny. Like he definitely thinks boy bodily things are funny and she just doesn't have any interest in it. Like, so I think it depends too on kind of their social interaction on what they kind of think is funny in a moment too. They may be twins, but they're very separate in how they can react to some things.
And how about Sailor? Has she laughed yet?
She does laugh. She laughs if we're dancing. We have dance parties, and so she thinks that's funny if we're dancing or singing. But individually, if I'm by myself with her, she'll laugh if I'm talking really big and expressive, if I'm using really big words, or she'll even smile if somebody else is holding her and she sees me and I give her a big smile. She'll smile back and react to even that at this point. So
do you want to give some examples of humor that you produce with your kids, like how you guys joke around?
I mentioned dance parties. We have dance parties. We did last night. Everybody was dancing out here. And we tickle. We don't. I'm not really a joke teller. I don't really think I tell jokes. We don't tell jokes, but let's see what else. We sing together. Funny words. What else do we do that's funny? Yeah.
They humor themselves.
They do humor themselves a lot, and especially with there being 2 of them, they just play off of each other, and they make each other laugh half the time, and that's one of the blessings of twins. We aren't the entertainer all the time; they can entertain themselves.
Speaking with the family raised new questions about early humor. Do children use humor differently in a setting outside of home? Do they use humor differently with people outside their family? How does humor help or hinder children's development and achievement in school? Does a child's use and response to humor vary with factors such as behavior profile and socioeconomic status? To answer these questions, we spoke with Kate Barrera, a behavior specialist at Landtrip Elementary School in Houston ISD.
So the huge difference that I see between the different ages of kids and their humor is that with the littler kids, it's slapstick humor. It's funny if somebody wants to get attention, so they follow the chair if they think it's funny. And then with like late 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, it's sarcasm, and it's saying the opposite of everything, and that's a big funny thing. So that's a huge difference.
Okay. What do you see as benefits and drawbacks of using humor with children in a school setting?
I think the benefit would be is it would wake them up, and they wouldn't be bored if if the teachers were to use humor. But often with kids, if you're fun with them, then they take it too far. Then they don't know a limit and they keep it going, and then it's hard to control it. So once I think a teacher is silly with their kids, then the ones that are leaning toward extra silly kind of go beyond, and then it's hard to get it back together.
Okay.
So.
How do children use humor with others of different ages and social status? So how do they use it with their peers, their parents, with teachers, with you as a counselor, maybe with the principal?
That's a good question. I'm sure with the principal they don't use humor, obviously, and I feel that probably the intimidation level decreases the humor, obviously. Sometimes the kids that are kind of unabashed in their classrooms, just all over the place, generally will try to be silly with me, but everybody else that might be a little silly in class comes here and they're on the best behavior.
Okay.
So.
We also were wondering if you notice any differences between children's use of humor, and if those differences maybe correlate or relate to their behavioral profile. So if a student has ADHD or is diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, are there any variations in their use of humor that have to do with their...
I probably am not the right person to ask for that, but I've noticed the kids with ADHD are just have more energy and a little more silly in general. Mm-hmm. So there just seems to be they're more all over the place.
Okay. Do you observe or know of any differences in children's use of or response to humor that might correlate with their family's socioeconomic status?
The kids that I see that are, that might have ADHD, I don't know why, but tend to be also economically challenged as well. So I don't know if it's because of their ADHD that they, have all this extra energy and are silly, or because, there's some financial situation at home and that is so stressful that the behavior comes out of school. Or also, if a child doesn't get the attention at home, or if the home is really stressful and, kid's always beaten down, or whatever, he'll come to school and act out just to get attention. So it's all tied together.
Okay.
Humor is an essential part of the human condition. Laughing and smiling are things that we often seek out in our daily lives. Findings from developmental psychology have revealed much about what humor is and how it develops. Humor is both social and cognitive in nature. An understanding of social norms is crucial for a successful sense of humor, and often guides the paths and patterns with which our humor develops. Children learn to joke before they learn to lie or pretend. In our interview with the Pine family, we saw how humor differs at different stages of development, and how we gradually begin to understand more subtle types of humor over time. We also observed through Blair and Rayleigh how children learn about humor and understand it through context provided by those around them before they gradually begin to produce their own novel forms of humor. We learned through our interview with Dr. Barrera that younger children often implement and respond best to slapstick forms of humor, which is typically a simpler, more straightforward kind of joke. She has noticed in the children that she interacts with daily that as the children age, the slapstick humor gradually turns into a more sophisticated form of humor, such as sarcasm. In light of these findings, questions remain, and new ones are emerging. But telling jokes and making others laugh will always be a part of life.
Skiller.
It was the water fountain, okay?